welcome back to Something Better Ministry. Today I'm in the kitchen and I'd like to show to you how to make a tea the proper way. Now there are two types of teas that you can make. One is an infusion and the other is a decoction. There is a difference in the two. Let me show you what they are. So when making an infusion, it is very simple. You just take your plant substance. Usually when people make an infusion, you would use either the leaf of the plant, or you would use the powdered form of the herb, or even light stems of the plant. So when making an infusion, you're going to use very low heat because you're using very delicate forms of the plant or the herb. And you want to avoid too much heat because too much heat will then destroy the constituents or the properties that are in it. And so you will not really get the medicinal effect if you apply too much heat. So when making a herbal tea, you really just want to take some water, preferably distilled water, because distilled water, they say, is a hungry water, and the water does not contain any minerals. Oftentimes when we drink a lot of water, there's minerals that are in the water, and our body is not really able to assimilate the water. And so it is inorganic in our bodies and the body cannot use it. So they can sit there and they can cause the body to have too much minerals in the system, which will then develop into other problems. So when making herbal teas, it's recommended to use distilled water, and this will even help to flush out a lot of the minerals that are in the body that are just sitting there that can't be used. So when making the tea, you basically just want to put about a cup of water, about 8 ounces of water on a pot, and then you can take your plant substance and you can put it in a glass container. You might have seen in a previous video when I spoke about red raspberry leaves, and I showed out how to identify it and even how to dry it. Red raspberry leaves is one of our favorite herbs. And one of the reasons for that is this herb is so beneficial that it is known to be a herb for women's health. And so this actually promotes women's health. It's a tonic herb, meaning that it has properties in it to actually tone the female reproductive system. And so it helps to make the system function and work properly. So it helps women in the cases of menstrual problems, menstrual cramps, excess bleeding, and even with problems with menopause and many other problems. Red raspberry is also good for flu problems, cold problems, ulcers, sores. It's good for a lot of different things. And it's very high in minerals and vitamins. And so when making a tea out of red raspberry, it's always best to use an infusion. And as of lately, I have been using a cold infusion where I just basically take the herb and place it into a jar and just add water without any heat and letting that sit for a couple of hours, and then I have a nice cool tea to drink. But in general, when making a regular infusion, what you would do is you would take your water and you would heat it on the stove just to where it is at boiling point. You would then take another container, say a glass container if you have, and then you would put the plant substance in there. So remember, infusions are for flowers, it's for the leaves, and it's for powders, and it's also for light stems. So this is the light part, the delicate part of the plant is for infusions. So here I am taking more or less about a tablespoon. This is very light, so it may look like a lot, but it's really not a lot, into the glass container. And then you take the water, and when it gets to boil, then you basically pour it over. As we wait for the water to boil, let me talk a little bit more about the herbs that I dry. In a previous video, I showed how I dried the red raspberry leaves in the barn, but I also dry leaves here in the house. And so if you see over here, in the window, I hang some leaves here in the house to dry. And basically, I do the same process as I showed on the previous video, where I tie this area with but I place the rubber band around this area and I tie it with the cord and I suspend it like this and I allow it to get some air. There are people who dry herbs on the wall. They would hang these on the wall like so. This is not a good idea because when you're drying herbs, you actually want the airflow to go through so that it can properly dry. And when they do dry, they get very crunchy. And so if they're on the wall, get up against the wall, there is no way that the ones that's attached to that's touching the wall is gonna properly dry. So the best way is to do it like this, where they can get proper airflow. So if you don't have a barn to dry herbs, it's always good to dry it in the kitchen. You also want the shades to be low or put it out the shades altogether because you do not want your herbs to be in direct heat. The direct heat, the direct light of the sun will destroy the property, so you will get like no benefit from that. So when you do them in the kitchen, make sure that it's at low light and that there's good circulation in how you hang them. So as we're waiting for the water to get hot, you just basically take the glass and put them in there. The herbs take about a week to dry and they get very crunchy. And as you can see for these, this is red raspberry. If I even go like so, I can crush them and they can become a powder very quickly, just like that. So they get nice and crunchy. So here we have the water and I see bubbles forming. So it's just about at temperature to boil. What I do is I just basically pour the water right into it. And here we have some lemon balm. So we pour about a cup and then we just cover. And then you let the water and the herbs steep for about 15 minutes. And this is how you make an infusion. When you're making an infusion, especially when you're using plants that are in the mint family, you want to make sure that you cover the top. The reason for this is because they are essential oils that are in the plants. And if the top is not covered, if there's no lid to cover it, the constituents will evaporate into the air. You won't get a true benefit. So here we have the plants covered and we'll wait for this to infuse. All right, so now we'll go ahead and make a decoction. So as we mentioned before, the infusion is for the light part, the delicate part of the herb. The decoction though is for the rough part of the herb. So this is where we use more heat because we're using the rough parts, such as the bark of the herb or the roots. We're gonna make a decoction out of this herb that we have here, which is ginger roots. And so here we have some ginger root pieces and it's actually in small pieces. When you have a root, if you buy ginger from the store or if you grow ginger yourself and you have a large piece, it's best if you cut the piece up because it will be more difficult to get all the properties if it's one large piece. But if you cut it up, there's more surface area for you to get more of the benefits out the small pieces. So to make the decoction, you will need more heat because you're dealing with a rough part of the plant. So here we'll take some water as we did before and we'll place it into the pot. And then we're going to add some of the ginger roots. And so what we're gonna do, we're gonna place it in the pot with the water, and now we're gonna put that on heat. And we're gonna bring that to boil. And then once that is boiled, we're gonna then turn the stove off and cover it and let that steep for about 15 minutes. All right, so as you can see that our herb is boiling, and so we're gonna let this boil for a few minutes and then we're gonna turn it off and let it steep. So what is the benefit of drinking tea? Well, some of the benefit of drinking herbal teas is that it allows the body to get the properties that are in the tea, the medicinal value that God has placed in it directly into the bloodstream when you drink it. So infusions work very quickly because there's no need for any digestion. It's in a liquid form, so it goes right into the blood. And so if you are looking to get the benefits of things quickly, herbal teas are one of the best ways to do that. And when making herbal teas, you get the whole plant. It is said the whole plant is better than the parts or the sum of the parts. So the whole is better than pieces of it. And so when you make a herbal tea, you're getting the whole plant. You get all the benefits. And plants work so wonderfully that they don't just work for one or two things. They work for many different things. And so when you keep them in their whole form, in their full state, how God had made them, you get a whole bunch of different benefits when you take them in the body. And so our tea is smelling really good right now. This is ginger, one of the most beneficial herbs we have. Ginger is very good for gas problems, for stomach problems, good for nausea, and it's also one of our favorite herbs also. Ginger adds a very nice flavor to a lot of different things, and it is also a very warming herb. So ginger helps to even warm the body. And so right now it's looking very good. We're going to go ahead and just turn the stove off, and we'll cover it and let it steep for about 15 minutes. And in 15 minutes, we'll take a look at both of our infusion and our decoctions and see what our teas look and taste like. All right, so welcome back. Our ginger tea is ready to go. It smells delicious and it's ready to pour. And so all we need to do is just take a strainer and go ahead and strain this tea out. And here you have a beautiful ginger anti-inflammatory tea. And we use the method of a decoction because remember, we use the roots of the ginger, and because it's a rough part of the plant, we had to use more heat to get the properties out. And now here we have our infusion, which was the lemon balm that we were steeping for about 15 minutes, covered, and now we're going to go ahead and strain that. And now here we have our beautiful infused lemon balm herbal tea. So here we have both of our teas, and I hope that you are blessed by this video. And now I hope that you go out and make some wonderful teas for your friends and for your family, and teach them how is the best way to make a proper herbal tea. May God bless you richly. And as the Bible says in John 3:2, it says, "Beloved, I wish above all things that thou mayest prosper and be in health, even as thy soul prospereth." Take care and God bless.